Essay number 1. Describe the mechanism of opening and closing stomata. Then we have to describe briefly the factors affecting stomatal action. Then part C, briefly describe the carnivorous plant nutrition with examples. So first we'll see how to describe the mechanism of opening and closing of stomata. So this mechanism is explained by the K plus influx hypothesis. So there is a hypothesis to explain this mechanism. That is the K plus influx hypothesis. In the presence of light during the daytime, right, in the presence of light, what happens? Guard cells, what do? They actively, using energy, they actively accumulate K plus. From where? Where do they accumulate the K plus from? From the neighboring epidermal cells. Then what's the result of this? Now, during the daytime, in the presence of light, the guard cells actively accumulated this K plus from the neighboring epidermal cells, from the surrounding neighbors, the epidermal cells. The result of this is that it lowers the water potential in the guard cells. So this mechanism we know is explained by the K plus influx hypothesis. During the daytime, in the presence of light, guard cells actively accumulate K plus from the neighboring epidermal cells, thus lowering what we call the water potential in the guard cells. Now, as a result of this, the turgor pressure in the guard cells increase because the water is coming into the guard cells now, no? Because the water potential in the guard cells reduced due to the K plus accumulation into the guard cells, no? Then what happens? Then, as a result, the turgor pressure in the guard cells increases, therefore leading to opening of stomata. It leads to the opening of the stomata. The energy is provided, right? How is the energy provided? It's provided to the chloroplast. How? During the electron transport chain. Okay, so the energy is provided to the chloroplast during the electron. The energy is provided by the chloroplast during the electron transport chain. So the energy is provided by the chloroplast during the electron transport chain to accumulate this K plus. Okay. At night, K plus ions are lost from the guard cells to the epidermal cells. So at night, what happens is that the K plus ions are lost from the guard cells to the epidermal cells. Now this time, K plus ions are lost during the night time from the guard cells to the epidermal cells. Now what happens as a result of this? Due to this exosmosis of water. So due to this exosmosis of water, which is releasing water out of the cell, exosmosis of water takes place from the guard cells. Now the turgor pressure in the guard cells decrease as a result. Closing stomata. How simple, no? The mechanism is explained by the K plus influx hypothesis. During the daytime, in the presence of light, the guard cells actively accumulate the K plus from the neighboring epidermal cells, thus lowering the water potential in the guard cells. As a result, the turgor pressure in guard cells increase, opening the stomata. The energy for this is provided by the chloroplast in a process. In what process? During the electron transport chain. At night, K plus are lost from the guard cells to the epidermal cells. Now, due to this, exosmosis of water takes place from the guard cells. Therefore, the turgor pressure in the guard cells decrease, closing stomata. Now, in the second part of the question, we have briefly describe the factors affecting stomatal action. So we have to describe the factors affecting stomatal action. Now earlier we discussed the mechanism of opening and closing of stomata, but now they're asking the factors that affect the stomatal action. So what can you say? Light, yeah, that's a factor affecting stomatal action. Light induces the accumulation of K plus in guard cells. It's famous, right? We know that fact. Light induces the accumulation, the accumulation of K plus in guard cells. So light can induce actually the accumulation of K plus in the guard cells. CO2 concentration in the substomatal cavity decreases. Right? When the CO2 concentration in the substomatal cavity decreases, what happens? It leads to the opening of stomata. Okay? When the CO2 concentration in the substomatal cavity decreases, right? It leads to open the stomata because we need more carbon dioxide in, right? To power up our photosynthetic processes. You don't have to write all that, but just have that understanding. Light induces the accumulation of K plus in guard cells. CO2 concentration in the substomatal cavity decreases, which leads to the opening of stomata. The internal clock in the guard cells. There is also a factor which is the internal clock in the guard cells. There's another factor. So what does this internal clock of clock in guard cells do? It controls the daily rhythm of opening and closing of stomata. It controls the daily rhythm, right? Their daily rhythm of opening and closing of stomata. Due to the stimulation of water deficiency, right? Now it's another factor, right? Due to the stimulation of water deficiency, when there is a water deficiency, there is a stimulus. Now due to that stimulus, roots and leaves produce what we call abscisic acid, or ABA. Now it releases K plus from the guard cells and therefore closes stomata. But it prompts K plus to release from the guard cells, and then what happens? Then the stomata is closed. Now it prevents wilting of the plant. It prevents wilting of the plant. Drought, high temperature, and wind cause stomata to close during the daytime. So drought, high temperature, wind. These factors cause stomata to close during the daytime. So what are the factors that cause stomata to close during the daytime? Drought. When it's dry, for example, what happens? You have to prevent losing much water from the plant, right? You have to conserve water. I'm not going to explain all the factors, but just few points I just try to help out. Cause stomata to close during the daytime. So what are the factors? Drought, high temperature, and wind. Okay.